For 8 years my parents spoke about me only in the past tense. Not a birthday call. Not a Christmas card. Not even a text when my fiancé died in that highway accident outside Phoenix. They told relatives I had made my choice, and they had mourned me accordingly. My mother actually wore black to my cousin's wedding, and told people she was grieving a difficult loss. That loss was me. Still breathing. Still fighting. Just not fitting into their perfect blueprint. Then one December morning, my face appeared on Forbes. 30 under 30. Tech founders reshaping retail. 3 hours after the article went live, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I had deliberately never deleted, even though it had been silent since I was 19 years old. Mom. Family Christmas party at our place. December 24th, 6:30 sharp. Bring something warm to wear. We'll be taking photos on the porch. We have something urgent to discuss. Heavy black heart hash. I stared at that little heart emoji like it was a fossil from another era. No, congratulations. No, we saw the article. No, we're sorry we pretended you didn't exist while you were eating ramen for dinner and sleeping in a Detroit hostel with bedbugs. Just a summons. An appointment. A transaction disguised as a reunion. I read it 3 times, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I laughed. A real, full-body laugh that echoed through my downtown Chicago loft, the kind of space my 19-year-old self wouldn't have even dared to dream about. Because here's what they didn't know, sitting in their pristine colonial house in Newton, Massachusetts, planning their little ambush. I wasn't coming alone. And I wasn't coming to reconcile. I was coming to bury them the same way they had buried me. Only this time, the grave would be lined with legal documents, stamped signatures, and the kind of poetic justice that money can actually buy. See, 8 years ago, when I walked out of that house with $240 in my checking account and a duffel bag stuffed with thrift store clothes, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't just survive. I would rise so high they'd have to crane their necks to see me. And when they finally looked up, when they finally remembered I existed, I'd make sure they understood exactly what they had thrown away. December 24th was going to be more than a Christmas party. It was going to be a reckoning. I opened my laptop and pulled up the folder I had been building for the past 2 months, ever since a routine audit of my company's potential real estate acquisitions had revealed something extraordinary. Something that changed everything. My parents' medical clinic, the one my father had poured his entire career into, the one my mother managed with military precision, the one they had chosen over their own daughter, was drowning. Not struggling. Not facing a rough quarter. Drowning. $6 million in debt. Foreclosure notices piling up. Creditors circling like vultures over fresh roadkill. And I had bought it all. Every single dollar of that debt now belonged to me. They didn't know it yet, but I didn't just own their failure. I owned their future. I picked up my phone and typed a response, short and sweet. I'll be there. Looking forward to it. Then I called my lawyer. Cynthia? It's Maylee's. I need you to prepare a Christmas present. Let me take you back. Back to when I was still breathing their air, still living under their roof, still suffocating under the weight of their expectations. Age 7, I won the county spelling bee. My father shook my hand like I was a business associate and said, "Good. You'll need that discipline for medical school." Age 12, I built a website for my middle school's book fair that processed orders and tracked inventory. My mother patted my head and said, "Cute hobby. Now go study for the biology exam." Age 16, I launched an Etsy store that made $3,000 in 4 months selling customized laptop skins. My father deleted my account and grounded me for wasting time on frivolous distractions. They had a plan. A perfect, pristine, suffocating plan. Harvard pre-med. Johns Hopkins for residency. A specialty in cardiology or neurosurgery. A respectable marriage to another doctor. A house in the suburbs. Grandchildren who would carry on the legacy. And I was supposed to smile and nod and march in formation like a good little soldier. But at 19, standing in our kitchen with an acceptance letter from Harvard Medical School in one hand and a business proposal in the other, I made a choice. I chose myself. I'm not going, I said. My mother was chopping vegetables for dinner, some organic kale thing she'd seen on a cooking show. The knife stopped midair. What did you say? I'm not going to Harvard. I'm starting a business instead. I've been accepted into a startup accelerator in Detroit. They're offering funding, mentorship, workspace. Detroit. My father appeared in the doorway, still in his white coat from the clinic. You want to throw away Harvard Medical School to play entrepreneur in Detroit? It's not playing. I've built something real. An inventory management platform for independent retailers. I have beta users. I have revenue. You have nothing. His voice was cold, surgical. You have a child's fantasy and an ego too big to see reality. My mother set down the knife very carefully, like she was disarming a bomb. Maylees, sweetheart, we've invested everything in your education. Everything. Do you understand what Harvard means? What doors it opens? I understand what doors I want to open myself. My father's jaw tightened. Let me be very clear. If you walk away from this opportunity, if you throw away everything we've built for you, you will do it without our support. Financial, emotional, or otherwise. I understand. I don't think you do. He stepped closer. Because if you leave, you won't be our daughter anymore. You'll be a stranger who used to live in this house. The air felt like concrete. My mother didn't contradict him. Didn't soften the blow. Didn't even look at me. She just picked up the knife and resumed chopping. That night, I packed one duffel bag. The next morning, I called an Uber at dawn. My father was drinking coffee in the kitchen when I walked through with my bag. He looked at me for a long moment, and then he said the words that would echo in my head for 8 years. We had one daughter. She died today. My mother appeared behind him. I waited for her to say something. Anything. She adjusted her bathrobe and walked away. And that was it. No goodbye. No hug. No last chance. Just silence. I walked out the door with $240 in my checking account, a laptop held together with duct tape, and absolutely no idea if I would survive the next month. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would never, ever let them make me feel small again. Detroit was brutal. Not in the dangerous, crime-ridden way the news loved to portray, but in the grinding, exhausting, soul-testing way that poverty always is. I lived in a hostel for the first 4 months, $18 a night, shared bathroom, paper-thin walls. I worked morning shifts at a coffee shop called The Grind, afternoon shifts doing data entry for a medical billing company, and spent every remaining hour coding. My platform was called Shelfwise. Simple concept. Help small independent stores, bookshops, clothing boutiques, gift shops, manage inventory without expensive enterprise software. The accelerator gave me $20,000 in seed funding and 3 months of workspace. I made it last 6 by eating nothing but peanut butter sandwiches and sleeping on the office couch. My laptop died twice. I fixed it with YouTube tutorials and prayers. My first 10 users were store owners I literally walked into and pitched face-to-face, wearing the same blazer I'd thrift for $8, carrying printouts because I couldn't afford business cards. 3 said yes out of pity. But they used it. And they liked it. And they told their friends. Year 1, $47,000 in revenue. Barely enough to keep the lights on. Year 2, $340,000. I hired my first employee, a developer named Tasha who worked for equity because I couldn't afford her salary. Year 3, $1.2 million. We moved into real office space. I bought my first professional wardrobe. I ate vegetables again. Year 4, an investor from Chicago offered $3 million for 15% of the company. I took the meeting in my best thrift store suit, hands shaking under the table. He said, "You remind me of myself at your age. Hungry. Relentless. A little bit crazy." I signed the deal in a Starbucks bathroom because I was afraid I'd cry in front of him. Years 5 through 7 were a blur. More funding. More hiring. More growth. National retailers started noticing. We expanded into supply chain analytics. Then predictive ordering. Then AI-assisted forecasting. By year 8, Shelfwise had 200 employees, offices in 4 cities, an evaluation that made my accountant do a double take. $120 million. And then Forbes called. The interview was in a hotel conference room in Manhattan. The photographer made me pose with my laptop, laughing at something off camera like I was living some kind of dream. I wasn't laughing. I was remembering my father's face the morning I left. The article went live on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, my LinkedIn had exploded. News outlets were requesting interviews. My inbox was flooded with congratulations from people I'd never met. And on Wednesday afternoon, at 3:47 p.m. exactly, my phone buzzed with a message that would change everything. Family Christmas party at our place. December 24th, 6:30 sharp. I read it sitting in my office, 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. My assistant Tasha knocked and peeked in. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I smiled. Something like that. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding for 8 years. I Googled my parents. The clinic was still there. Still operating. Still wearing the pristine facade they'd always maintained. But I knew how to read between the lines. I called my CFO. "I need you to pull everything you can find on Hartwell Family Medical Center in Newton, Massachusetts. Financial records, debt obligations, property liens, everything. What are we looking for?" Vulnerabilities. The report came back 72 hours later. And that's when I learned the beautiful, terrible truth. They were dying. And I could save them. Or I could watch. Christmas Eve arrived with the kind of picture-perfect snowfall that belonged on greeting cards. I drove from Chicago to Newton in my new Tesla. Black, sleek, silent. The kind of car my 19-year-old self wouldn't have believed was possible. The GPS led me through familiar streets that felt like museum exhibits of my former life. The high school where I'd won science fairs. The library where I'd taught myself to code. The intersection where my father once lectured me about wasting time on computer games instead of studying anatomy. And then, the house. Same grey colonial. Same white trim. Same holiday wreath on the door, probably bought from the same craft fair vendor they'd used since I was a child. I sat in the car for 5 full minutes, engine off, watching lights glow warm in the windows. A family gathered. A scene of togetherness. Except it was built on a lie. I pulled the folder from my passenger seat. Inside, documents my lawyer had prepared. Foreclosure notices. Debt purchase agreements. Ownership transfers. All stamped. All legal. All mine. I also pulled out a small wrapped box with a card on top. That was for later. I stepped out into the cold. Snow crunched under my boots. Italian leather. $600. Worth every penny. The door opened before I could knock. My mother stood there, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. She looked older. Thinner. Like the years had carved away something essential. But her smile was exactly the same. Practiced, perfect, porcelain. Maylees. She pulled me into a hug that felt like a performance, all angles and no warmth. "There you are. Come in, you must be freezing." She smelled like cinnamon candles and expensive moisturizer. My father appeared behind her, hands in his pockets, expression carefully neutral. "Good to see you," he said. "Not we missed you. Not we are sorry." Just a professional greeting, like I was a colleague arriving for a consultation. I stepped inside. The house looked frozen in time. Same furniture. Same family photos on the mantel, except every single picture of me had been removed. In their place, portraits of my older brother Dominic, his wife, their 2 kids. The grandchildren my parents actually acknowledged. "Everyone's in the living room," my mother said, taking my coat like a hostess at a restaurant. "We are so glad you could make it. Dominic's been asking about you." Liar. Dominic hadn't asked about me in 8 years. I walked into the living room. 12 people looked up. Cousins. An aunt and uncle. Dominic and his family. All of them frozen mid-conversation, staring at me like I was a celebrity who'd wandered into the wrong party. Which, I suppose, I was. Maylees. Dominic stood up, arms outstretched. "Wow, look at you. Forbes magazine. We are all so proud." He hugged me, and I felt his calculation in the grip, measuring, assessing, wondering what he could get. Everyone else followed suit. Hugs. Compliments. Questions about how's business, and what's it like being so successful. Not one person mentioned the 8 years. Not one person said, "We should have called." They all just pretended the silence had never happened. My mother poured wine. My father carved turkey. Dominic's kids ran around shrieking about Santa. And we all played pretend. Dinner was catered, some expensive spread from a Boston restaurant, artfully arranged on our good china. I sat at the far end of the table, directly across from my father. He asked about shelf-wise like a professor examining a dissertation. "So this inventory platform, what's your user retention rate?" 92% annual retention. His eyebrows lifted. Impressive. And your revenue model? Subscription-based. Tiered pricing. Enterprise clients pay custom rates. Smart. He nodded approvingly, like I'd finally done something worth his attention. And the valuation, $120 million, the article said. That's the current estimate, yes. My mother set down her fork. We really are so proud of you, sweetheart. You've accomplished something remarkable. Dominic chimed in, leaning forward with his elbows on the table. Seriously, Maylees. That's incredible. Building something from nothing like that. I don't think any of us could have done it. I sipped my wine and said nothing, because I knew what was coming. After dessert, some elaborate chocolate mousse thing, my mother suggested. We moved to the living room for coffee. The children were sent upstairs to watch movies. And then, finally, the masks started to slip. My father cleared his throat. Maylees, there's something we need to discuss with you. That's actually why we invited you tonight. There it was. I set down my coffee cup very carefully. I'm listening. My mother reached over and squeezed my hand, the first genuine touch I'd felt from her in nearly a decade. The clinic is facing some challenges. Challenges, my father corrected, is an understatement. We are in serious financial trouble. Dominic added, they've been trying to handle it on their own, but the debt has gotten out of control. I kept my face perfectly neutral. What kind of debt? My father's jaw tightened. I could see how much it cost him to admit this. $6 million. Medical equipment loans, building mortgage, operational shortfalls. We've been trying to restructure, but the banks won't negotiate anymore. We are facing foreclosure by February. My mother's eyes filled with tears, real ones, I think. We could lose everything. 30 years of work. Every patient we've served. Every life we've touched. Gone. The room went quiet. Everyone watched me, waiting. And you want me to save it? I said softly. My father nodded. You have the resources. A loan, or even an investment. We'd pay you back, of course. With interest. Family helps family, my mother added. That's what we do. I looked around the room. Dominic was nodding encouragingly. My aunt and uncle looked hopeful. Everyone had apparently been briefed on the plan. Get Maylees to open her checkbook. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not anger. Clarity. Let me make sure I understand, I said. 8 years ago, I left this house because I wanted to build something of my own. And you told me I was dead to you. Not struggling. Not making a mistake. Dead. My mother opened her mouth to protest, but I held up a hand. I didn't get a call when I was living in a hostel. I didn't get a call when I was working 3 jobs. I didn't get a call when my fiancé died. My father flinched. Good. But now, because I succeeded, because I built something valuable without your help, without your approval, without your permission, suddenly I'm family again. Suddenly you're proud. Suddenly we need to help each other. Maylees, Dominic started. Is that about right? I finished. Silence. My mother wiped her eyes. We made mistakes. We know that. But we are asking for help, not absolution. And what happens after I write the check? I asked. Do I get invited to next year's Christmas party? Or do I go back to being dead once you don't need me anymore? No one answered. Because we all knew the truth. I stood up. I need some air. I walked to the foyer, grabbed my coat, and stepped out onto the porch. The snow was still falling. Behind me, I heard hushed arguing. My mother's voice, strained. She's upset. Give her time. I didn't need time. I needed them to hurt the way I had hurt. I stood on that porch for 10 minutes, letting the cold bite through my coat, watching my breath fog in the dark. Behind me, through the window, I could see them all gathered in the living room. My mother pacing. My father standing rigid. Dominic gesturing, probably trying to strategize how to salvage the situation. They thought I was out here wrestling with the decision. They thought I was choosing between bitterness and forgiveness. They had no idea I'd already chosen. Months ago. The door opened. My father stepped out, closing it carefully behind him. Can we talk? I didn't look at him. Sure. He stood beside me, hands in his pockets, staring out at the snow-covered street. I know what you're thinking, he said. That we only called because we need something. And you're right. Partly. Partly. We should have reached out sooner. We should have. He trailed off, and for the first time in my life, I heard something that might have been regret in his voice. We were wrong. About how we handled things. About what we said. You told me I was dead. I was angry. Scared. You were throwing away something most people would kill for, and I couldn't understand why. Because it wasn't mine, I said quietly. It was yours. Your dream. Your plan. Your life. He was quiet for a long moment. The clinic was supposed to be our legacy, he finally said. Your mother and I built it from nothing. We thought if we could pass it on to you, if you became the doctor we couldn't quite be, then it would all mean something. It already meant something. Just not the thing you wanted it to mean. He nodded slowly. Maybe that's true. I turned to face him for the first time. Do you know what the hardest part was? It wasn't the poverty. It wasn't the uncertainty. It was knowing that if I failed, you'd feel vindicated. You'd get to be right about me. His face crumpled slightly. Maylise. So I couldn't fail. I couldn't even stumble. Because failure would mean proving you right. And I'd rather have died than given you that satisfaction. Is that what kept you going? Spite? At first, I admitted. But then it became something else. It became mine. My success. My company. My life. Built on my terms. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You really did it, he said softly. Without us. Despite you. The door opened again. My mother stepped out, wrapping her arms around herself against the cold. Everything okay? We are talking, my father said. She looked between us, then directly at me. What do you need to hear, Maylise? What would make this right? I almost laughed. There's nothing you could say that would make 8 years of silence right. Then what do you want? Her voice cracked. Because I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to be your mother again. You were never my mother, I said, and watched her face shatter. A mother would have called. Would have cared. Would have chosen her daughter over her pride. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, I cut her off. I learned that when I was 19 years old and you watched me walk out that door without saying goodbye. She was crying now, really crying, mascara streaking down her cheeks. My father put a hand on her shoulder. And I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not vindication. Not even anger anymore. Just a vast, empty distance that 8 years had carved between us. Come back inside, my father said. Please. Let's talk about this properly. I nodded. We walked back in together. Everyone looked up expectantly, hopefully. I went to my purse and pulled out the folder. Before we discuss the clinic, I said, there's something you all need to know. I placed the folder on the coffee table. My father picked it up, opened it, and went absolutely still. My mother looked over his shoulder. What is this? She whispered. 2 months ago, during a routine acquisition analysis for ShelfWise, my team identified a struggling medical facility in Newton that fit our criteria for potential real estate development. My father's hands started shaking. So I looked closer. And I discovered that the property wasn't just struggling, it was about to be foreclosed on. $6 million in outstanding debt, spread across 3 different creditors. Dominic stood up. Maylis, what did you do? I met his eyes. I bought the debt. All of it. Gasps. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. The foreclosure notices you've been receiving? They're from an LLC called Hartwell Holdings. That's mine. The debt restructuring letters? Also mine. The balloon payment due February 15th? You'll be paying me. My father sank into his chair, the folder still clutched in his hands. You own the clinic. I own your debt, which means I control what happens to the clinic. And to you. The room erupted. Dominic, you can't be serious. My mother, why would you do this? My aunt, this is your family. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. 8 years ago, you told me I was dead to you. You said family was about following the plan, meeting expectations, becoming what you needed me to be. So I learned. And now I'm applying the lesson. My father looked up at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. What do you want? And that was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? I looked around the room at all these people who had pretended I didn't exist for 8 years. And I realized something. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. The debt is real. The foreclosure is real. And February 15th is real. My mother made a small, broken sound. But I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to give you a choice. My father leaned forward. What choice? The clinic is worth saving. The care you provide is real. The patients need you. So here's the deal. I'll restructure the debt. Reasonable terms, manageable payments, no balloon payment. Hope flickered across my mother's face. But, I continued, I want 3 things in return. Anything, my mother said immediately. First, you will never contact me again unless I reach out first. No holidays. No birthdays. No emergencies. Nothing. I decide if and when we have a relationship. My father's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Second, you will establish a scholarship fund at the clinic. Full-ride medical scholarships for students whose families disown them for choosing their own path. You'll fund it through a portion of your profits, and you'll name it after the daughter you declared dead. My mother was openly weeping now. And third, I pulled out the small wrapped box I'd brought with me. You'll make sure this gets delivered. I handed it to my father. He opened it slowly. Inside was a plane ticket. One way. Boston to Paris. First class. Departing December 26th. And a note. For Grandma Celeste. The only one who never stopped calling. My father's face crumpled. Because he knew. My grandmother, his mother, had been the only one to reach out over the years. Quiet calls. Small cards. Little reminders that someone remembered I was still alive. And my parents had discouraged her. Asked her not to encourage my rebellion. She's 83 years old, I said softly. She wants to see Paris before she dies. I bought her a month-long stay in an apartment in the Marais. I'll be there too. Maybe we'll finally have the relationship you never let us have. My father set down the box like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Deal? I asked. My mother nodded immediately. My father took longer, but finally, deal. I picked up my coat. Dominic stood up. Maylis, wait. No. I cut him off. You had 8 years to wait. I'm done waiting. I walked to the door. My mother followed me. Maylis, her voice broke. I am proud of you. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know. I looked at her for a long moment. I hope you are, I said quietly. Because it's the closest you'll get to knowing your daughter. I stepped out into the snow. The door closed behind me. I walked to my car, started the engine, and pulled away from that house for what I knew would be the last time. The folder was still on their coffee table. The contract was already signed. My lawyer would handle the rest. And as I drove back toward Chicago, snow falling in my headlights, I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 years. Peace. My phone buzzed. A text from a number saved as Grandma Celeste. I just received the most beautiful Christmas gift. Thank you, my darling girl. I cannot wait to see you in Paris. You have made this old woman so very happy. I always knew you would be extraordinary. I pulled over on the side of the highway and cried. Not sad tears. Not angry tears. Just release. 8 years of carrying that weight, and it was finally gone. I texted back, see you in Paris, Grandma. I love you. And then I drove home. To my life. The one I had built. Alone. 3 months later, I stood in a cafe in Paris, drinking coffee that tasted like butter and heaven. Grandma Celeste sat across from me, wearing a ridiculous beret she'd bought from a street vendor, grinning like a teenager. Tell me again about their faces, she said, eyes twinkling. When you told them you owned the clinic. I laughed. Grandma, I've told you 3 times already. And I'll never get tired of hearing it. My granddaughter, the Forbes billionaire, teaching her parents a lesson in humility. It's better than French cinema. My phone buzzed with an email. From my CFO. Hartwell Family Medical Center has made their first payment. On time. In full. The scholarship fund has been established. Everything is proceeding according to contract. I showed Grandma Celeste. She squeezed my hand. You could have destroyed them, she said softly. But you chose mercy with boundaries. That takes more strength than revenge ever could. I learned from the best, I said. She smiled. Your parents loved you, you know. They just loved their dream of you more. I know. Do you think you'll ever forgive them? I thought about that. Maybe, I said finally. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It just means letting go of the weight. Wise girl. We finished our coffee and walked along the Seine, arm in arm, an old woman and a young one, both finally free. My phone buzzed one more time. A message from an unknown number. This is Dominic. Mom wanted me to tell you the first scholarship has been awarded. To a kid whose parents kicked him out for dropping out of law school to study music. Thought you'd want to know. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed back. Thank you for letting me know. And I deleted the number. Because some stories don't need sequels. They just need endings. And this one? This one was finally mine.